In this problem, we're going to be talking about the makeAppointment method. This method searches the periods from start period to end period, inclusive. These are two parameters that are being passed into the method. For the earliest block of duration available minutes in the lowest numbered period. If such a block is found, the makeAppointment method calls the helper method reserveBlock to mark the minutes in the block as unavailable and returns true. If no such block is found, the makeAppointment method returns false. And then we are given a list of unavailable and available minutes in 3 different periods, periods 2, 3, and 4, and then 3 calls to make appointments that we'll be looking into after we have written out the code. The rest of the problem says, complete method makeAppointment, assume that the find free block method, so that's the one that we wrote in part A, works as intended regardless of what you wrote in part A. You must use find free block and reserveBlock appropriately in order to receive full credit. Basically, this is kind of like the secondary method to find free block, where we're actually, as soon as we find a free block of duration number of minutes, we're going to mark that block as full. So we're going to be making an appointment and returning true if we found it, false otherwise. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with some pseudocode so we can sort of orient ourselves a little bit. So we're being passed in this start period and end period. So before with find free block, we only had one period and we needed to find a duration within that period. Now we're given a range of periods. So in the example calls that we're being given, it's sometimes we're going to start off with period 2 or 3 or 4 and an end period. So the duration that we're looking for to make an appointment. So first we're going to want to loop from start period to end period, right? We can find a free block within any of the periods between start period and end period. What we're going to try to do is try to find a free block that is duration minutes long. So since we're looking at each period by itself, we're also going to try to find a free block that is duration minutes long within that specific period. If we found one, reserve the block and return true. Okay, so that's if we're successful. Otherwise, we just keep looping. Otherwise, keep looping. So we move on to the next period, basically. Okay, and then outside of our loop, we would return false if we couldn't find a free block duration minutes long. Okay, that should be about it for our pseudocode. So let's go ahead and start implementing it. So if we're looping from start period to end period, those are kind of going to be the bounds of our loop, right? So we can start off at for int I is equal to start period. And then we want to make sure that I is less than or equal to end period. Okay, remember end period. Remember within the problem it says it searches the periods from start period to end period inclusive. So we also need to include our end period within our loop. We need to look and find if we can find duration number of free minutes in the end period as well. And then we want to look at each period in between those two. So we're going to do I++. Okay. So then we need to try to find a free block that is duration minutes long. Luckily for us, we just wrote a method called findFreeBlock that accepts a period and a duration. And what this does is it returns the first minute in the block if such a block is found, or -1 otherwise. Let's go ahead and store that into an int. We'll say int first minute is equal to, so let's go ahead and just call that findFreeBlock method, findFreeBlock. What are we going to be passing in? So the period that we are currently looking at is going to be represented using this I. Okay, so on the first iteration of the loop, it's going to be start period, and then we're going to do I++, and if end period is greater than start period, we can move forward. So but basically the I is keeping track of the current period, and the next thing that we need to pass in is the duration. So we can just use that parameter that we were passed in to make appointment, because that is going to be how long of a free period we want to find. So it should return the first minute in the block if it's found, or -1 if it's not found. So if we found one, what condition is going to be true? Well, it's not going to equal -1, right? So if it was -1, then that means that we didn't find a free block that was duration minutes long within that period. But if it isn't -1, we did actually find some sort of block Okay, so if it is not equal to -1, what do we want to do? We want to reserve the block. So we're going to want to use our reserveBlock method that accepts 3 parameters. So reserveBlock. This method doesn't return anything. This is just going to reserve the block within the period at the start minute and the duration. And we don't actually even know the implementation. We can just trust that it works. So the period that we want to pass in is I. The start minute is going to be this first minute that we got from findFreeBlock, first minute, and then duration is once again just going to be the duration that was passed in to makeAppointment. Okay, we reserve the block. Now we also need to return true. That's within the description of our method, that if we were able to reserve a block successfully, we need to return true. Okay. Otherwise, we're just going to keep looping. So you might think that we want to do like an else here or something. That isn't the case. In this scenario, the only thing we're checking for is whether we actually found a free block within the period I that is duration minutes long. If we did find one, if we had a successful first minute that is not equal to -1, we would reserve the block and return true. This otherwise keep looping, this was just pseudocode to help us understand that else case. That else case is we're going to finish the logic within our for loop, and then we're going to increment our I and move on to the next period. Okay, so we don't actually have to write any code for this line of pseudocode. That should be all the code for the inside of our for loop. Outside of the for loop, at this point, we know that we have looped from start period through all the periods between start period and end period inclusive. And if we didn't return true, we know that we didn't find a block of minutes that is duration minutes long. So at this point, we can just return false. And that should be all the code for this makeAppointment method. So let's go ahead and take a look at the following list of unavailable and available minutes in periods 2, 3, and 4, these method calls to makeAppointment. So the first one is makeAppointment 2/4/22. So let me do it this way. So the start period is 2, the end period is 4, and the duration is 22. So we're looking for a free period of 22 minutes between the periods 2 and 4. So you can kind of think of this as we're looking at the periods 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so we start off with I is equal to the start period, so that'd be 2. We check whether that's less than or equal to end period, which is 4. Yes, it is. So we go ahead and we try to find a free block within that period that is 22 minutes long. We're going to assume that findFreeBlock works well. I'm not going to go ahead and go into the implementation of that method. I'm just going to look at it using my eyes. If you want to see how I implemented findFreeBlock, you can go ahead and click on the video that I have for that one. But I'm just going to see if I can find it. So it looks like from minutes 0 to 24, those are not available. From minutes 25 to 29, we only have 5 minutes, which should be good, but then we need 17 more minutes in the next span of minutes, and unfortunately from 30 to 59, those are unavailable again. findFreeBlock would actually return -1 because we couldn't find a block of 22 consecutive minutes within period 2. We cannot reserve the block and return true, so we need to keep looping. So what's going to happen is we're going to increment our I. So now we're looking at period 3. 3 is still less than or equal to 4. So now we're going to be passing in findFreeBlock 3, 22. So we're trying to find a 22-minute consecutive block within period 3. Let's go ahead and look at it. So from 0 to 14, we have 15 free minutes. That's good. 15 is not quite 22, so we have to keep moving on. From 15 to 40, none of those minutes are free, so we have to restart to 0 again. And then from 41 to 59, we have 19 free minutes, which is good for us. However, 19 is not 22. So I would say that findFreeBlock 3, 22 would also return -1 because we couldn't find 22 consecutive free minutes. So because this if statement is not true, we can't reserve the block, we can't return true, we're going to keep looping. So now we increment our I again. So now we're looking at the 4th period. 4 is still less than or equal to 4. So we would call findFreeBlock 4, 22. So from 0 to 4, within period 4, those are not free. So we can go ahead and move on to the next chunk of time. So from 5 to 29, we have 25 minutes. 25 minutes is actually greater than 22, so findFreeBlock would actually return 5 in this case. That would be the first minute in the 22-minute block. So that would be from 5 to 26. So now we can finally go into this if statement, because 5 does not equal -1. So what's going to happen is we're going to reserve the block from 5 to 26 as unavailable, and then we're going to return true. This is what our list of unavailable and available minutes will look like after this method call has happened. The next method call is makeAppointment 3, 4, 3. So that means we are starting at period 3, we're ending at period 4, and we're looking for a 3-minute consecutive block. So we set our I equal to 3. So this is a bit different than the last method call where we started off with 2. Now we're starting off with 3. This is still less than or equal to the end period, which is 4. So we go ahead and we call find free block of 3, 3. Okay, so let's look at period 3. So it looks like from 0 to 14, we have 15 free minutes. Luckily for us, within that 15-minute block, we do have 3 consecutive free minutes. So find free block 3, 3 is going to return 0 as of the first free minute within that block. 0 is not equal to -1, so we can go ahead and reserve the block. So we would call reserveBlock for within period 3. The first minute is going to be 0 and the duration is 3. So we are reserving minutes 0, 1, and 2. And then we return true as well. So here is what our list of unavailable and available minutes would look like after this method call. The final method call is makeAppointment 2, 4, 30. So we are looking from period 2 to period 4 inclusive, and we're looking for a 30-minute consecutive free block. So we start off with I equal to startPeriod, which is 2. Make sure that this is less than or equal to 4. Yes, it is. So we go ahead and we call find free block of 2:30. So we're trying to find a 30-minute consecutive free block within period 2. From 0 to 24, none of those minutes are available. We move on to 25 to 29. We have 5 free minutes. All right. Then from 30 to 59, we have 30 unavailable minutes. So find free block 2 of 30 would return -1 because we didn't have a 30-minute free block within that period. So we cannot go into this if statement. We need to keep looping. So we increment our I to be 3. So now we're looking at the third period. We're still trying to find that 30-minute consecutive block. Let's see if we are able to find it. So for the period from 0 to 2, that is 3 unavailable minutes. Number of free minutes we have in a row right now is 0. We move on to 3 to 14, where we have 12 free minutes. 12 free minutes is not 30 minutes, so we have to keep looking to the next chunk of time. So from 15 to 40, we have 26 unavailable minutes. Our number of free minutes in a row goes back to 0. 41 through 59, this is 19 free minutes. Unfortunately, that is all the minutes that are available in period 3. So find free block of 3, 30 will return -1. So now we increment our I. We are now looking at period 4, and we call find free block 4, 30, 0 to 26 chunk of time. This is 27 minutes of unavailable time. So we are still at 0 free minutes in a row. We look at 27 through 29. This is 3 free minutes. So now we have 3 free minutes in a row. From 30 to 43, we have 14 unavailable minutes. So our counter goes back down to 0. And then we look at 44 through 59, which is 16 free minutes. Unfortunately, 16 is less than 30. So finding a free block of 30 minutes within period 4 is going to return -1. So we cannot go into the if statement, and we did not find a 30-minute consecutive free block within period 4. So we cannot go into this if statement. We have to keep looping. Unfortunately now, when we increment our I, we're going to get that I is equal to 5, which is greater than our end period. So we cannot look inside of period 5. So at this point, we're done with our looping logic, and that means that since we didn't return true anywhere within period 2, 3, or 4, we have to return false. We couldn't find a free block that was 30 minutes long. And then the list of unavailable and available minutes will not change because we didn't reserve any block of 30 minutes because we couldn't find it. If we get rid of our pseudocode, here's what our makeAppointment method looks like, where we loop from the start period to end period inclusive. We try to find the first minute of the free block that is duration minutes long within each period. If we do find that there is a free block that is duration minutes long within a period, we reserve that block and we return true. Otherwise, if we looped from start period to end period inclusive and we were not able to find a free block of time that was duration minutes long, what we do is we return false and no block of time is reserved. Hopefully that helps you out with this problem. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and I'll get back to you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.